Have you ever imagined waking up one morning, reading a message, and realizing you've been officially removed from your own family? No arguments, no warning, just a sentence cold enough to slice straight across your heart. That is exactly what happened to me. The message arrived at 10:17 p.m. while I was sitting in my small living room in Dallas, sipping chamomile tea. My phone lit up. "Mom, we've talked it over. From now on, you are no longer part of my family. Please don't come to our gatherings. We need boundaries." And right underneath it, Lauren, my daughter-in-law, hit like. My grandson Ethan even tapped the little heart emoji, as if they were transferring ownership of a car, not stripping a mother and grandmother of her place in the family. I read that line over and over again, unable to believe my eyes. My heart beat once, then again. But the most painful part wasn't the message. It was the silence. The kind of silence that felt like I had already disappeared from their lives long ago. They had just finally said it out loud. And then I replied with a single sentence, not bitter, not angry, just brutally honest. "Thank you for confirming. I will cancel all the automatic payments." I don't know exactly when the storm started. I only remember that by midnight, my phone was ringing non-stop, like someone was trying to break down the last door of their survival. 47 missed calls. 73 messages. The group chat Parker family, the same place where they had just declared I was no longer family, was now in complete chaos. But do you know what I was doing at that moment? I was sitting by the window, watching the Dallas night lights. And for the first time in many years, I took a deep breath. No anger. No urge to respond, just a feeling like I had finally set down a heavy burden I didn't even know I'd been carrying. If you want to understand why I was able to stay so calm, then let me take you back to the beginning, to the day when everything seemed gentle and wonderful, but turned out to be the opening scene of the biggest shock of my life. It was Ethan's graduation day, my grandson. I canceled 3 meetings to prepare a Texas-style BBQ for the celebration at Michael and Lauren's house. They told me to wear a cream-colored dress to match the photos. I arrived early, just as they asked, to set up the drink table. I stood under the blazing June Texas sun, lining up soda cans by color, adding ice to each lemonade dispenser. I thought, that's what a grandmother should do. But during the party, I realized I was nothing more than unpaid help. Guests praised Lauren for the beautiful setup, and she smiled, taking all the credit. Ethan opened gifts, glanced at the gift card I gave him, and tossed it aside. No smile, no thank you, not even eye contact. Then came the speech. Lauren stood on the patio, raised her glass. "Thank you to everyone who has supported Ethan." She thanked teachers, friends, Michael's manager, the neighbors, but not me. Not a single word, not even a glance. I stood by the drink table, my hand on the cold lemonade dispenser, and for the first time in my life, I felt, despite all the tens of thousands of dollars I had poured into this family, that I was completely invisible. I left the party without anyone noticing I was gone. And that was the day everything quietly began to change. If this story touched your heart, share your feelings, and tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie for more real stories about family, revenge, and awakening, where every tear carries a lesson about trust and betrayal. Have you ever left a family gathering and no one even noticed you were gone? I have. And the scariest part wasn't that they didn't look for me. The scariest part was that they didn't need me there at all. I drove home under the sweltering Dallas afternoon sun, opened the door, and stepped into a house so silent I could hear the wall clock ticking, beat by beat. I sat down, my legs still aching after hours standing at the drink table. I reached for the fan switch but stopped. It wasn't fatigue, it was the weight of a truth I had avoided for years. I was no longer part of their family. And when I opened my laptop to check my bank account, that truth became painfully clear. The list of automatic transfers scrolled down like a movie reel. Mortgage, $2,700. Michael's car, $410. Lauren's car, $389. Family phone plan, $220. Business credit card, $950. Insurance, $360 total. Over $4,000 every month, running steadily for 3 years. I stared at those numbers and asked myself, why didn't I realize this sooner? Or maybe, I did know but refused to look? Was it fear of being alone? Was it the desire to feel needed? I don't know. All I know is that when that Parker family group chat sent me that cruel little message, every layer of fog I'd been hiding behind for years evaporated in an instant. And the most surprising part was this. When I clicked cancel recurring payments, I didn't feel guilty. I felt relief. I slept like a child that night until a loud pounding at my door jolted me awake at a little past 7 a.m. The banging was so forceful, I thought someone was trying to break it down. It was Michael and Lauren. Michael stood on the porch with dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept. Lauren stood with her arms crossed, wearing sunglasses, her usually flawless hair now a tangled mess. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" I opened the door, my voice as calm as it had been the night before. "I just did what you asked. You said I wasn't part of the family anymore. I'm respecting that." Lauren walked inside as if it were her own house. No knocking, no asking, no waiting. "Evelyn, the mortgage is due today. We don't have the money." "I know," I said, "but that's no longer my concern." "You can't do this," Lauren nearly shouted. "Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm simply not doing it anymore." Michael sat down on the wooden chair, rubbing his face. "Mom, I don't have the money. Work has been slow this month. I can't let the bank take the house." I poured myself a glass of water very intentionally, not offering them any. "You two told me not to interfere with your family anymore. I'm doing exactly that." Lauren turned, her voice softer but trembling with suppressed rage. "Evelyn, we're family. Family forgives. Family doesn't exile someone in a group chat," I replied. "Last night, you said I wasn't family. I'm just listening to your words." Michael stood up again. "If you don't help us now, everything will fall apart." "Good." I looked at him, the son I once held in my arms in the delivery room, the child I stayed up countless nights nursing through fevers, the boy I gave everything to so he would never go without. Maybe falling apart is exactly what needs to happen. So you can rebuild something real on your own instead of living off my money. Lauren took a deep breath, her eyes red but still refusing to cry. "Well, remember this, Evelyn, so will I." I opened the door and motioned for them to leave. "You set the boundary. I'm just following it." They left, but minutes later, my phone buzzed. Ethan's name appeared. "Grandma, Dad said you're stopping the payments on my car?" "Yes, but I need the car for my summer job." "Then you should start working first." "Grandma, this is stupid. It's just money." I sat down and looked at a photo of Ethan as a little boy, the child who used to hug my neck and say, "Grandma, I love you more than dinosaurs." Now he said, "It's just money." "No, Ethan," I replied. "It's not just money. It's respect." I hung up before he could say anything else. And in that moment, I realized that this battle, this war I never asked for, had truly begun. What I didn't yet know was how far it would go. Far beyond a mortgage, a car payment, or a few canceled bills. It would unravel a dark truth hidden for years about the very people I called family. And when that truth finally came out, it wouldn't just change my life. It would change all of ours. If this story touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Feel free to share your feelings and tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay so you don't miss real family revenge stories where every tear carries a lesson about trust, betrayal, and awakening. Do you believe that just one click on cancel payment can trigger a real family earthquake? I didn't until it happened to me. The morning after the confrontation, my phone was strangely silent. No knocking on the door, no screaming from Lauren, no accusatory messages. But that silence wasn't peaceful. It felt like the stillness before a storm. I made myself a cup of coffee and looked out at the quiet Dallas street. Sunlight filtered through the window, soft and warm. A normal morning, yet inside me, a life was shifting. The feeling was unmistakable, like standing at the intersection of two roads. One path was the weight I'd carried for years. The other was a future I had never allowed myself to imagine. I chose the future. That day, I went to the office of Karen Liu, my financial advisor of over 10 years. She was the kind of woman who could read a client's emotional state just from looking at a financial report. As soon as she saw me, Karen frowned gently. "Evelyn, what happened?" "I got alerts that you canceled a lot of auto payments." I handed her the documents I had printed the night before, the full list of everything I had been paying for Michael's family. Karen went through every page. Her calm face shifted to shock, then to something like anger. "On my behalf, Evelyn, in 5 years, you've transferred over $280,000 to them. If that money had been invested or put in your 401, your retirement account would be much larger than it is now." I swallowed hard. I know. I just didn't realize how bad it had gotten. Karen placed her hand on the file and looked straight into my eyes. "You are not stupid. You are generous. And now you need to protect the rest of your life." That sentence, simple as it was, felt like someone had opened a window in a room that had been sealed for years. We rebuilt my finances together, canceled all recurring payments, re-established my savings accounts, redirected the money I once spent on Ethan's tuition into an Evelyn future fund, strengthened my health insurance and long-term care coverage. Then Karen asked, "Do you want to keep supporting them if they change?" I looked out the window, where afternoon sunlight hit the Dallas skyline. "I don't know. The only thing I want right now is to get myself back." After leaving Karen's office, I didn't go home. Instead, I drove somewhere I never thought I would go, to the office of therapist Dr. Naomi Fields. I walked in with a heart carrying more wounds than I had ever acknowledged. Naomi asked me a simple question. "Evelyn, when was the last time you lived for yourself?" I couldn't answer, because I couldn't remember. That day in therapy, I realized a painful truth. I had used money to maintain family ties instead of demanding the respect I deserved. Naomi told me to spend the evening writing a letter to myself, not for anyone else to read, but so I could finally see what I had lost. That night, under the warm yellow desk lamp, I wrote, "Dear Evelyn, it's time for you to stand up for yourself." I wrote until almost midnight, tears falling onto the pages, but for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt lighter. But peace never lasts long. 2 days later, I received a letter stamped from a Dallas law firm, Ridgway and Carlton Attorneys. My heart dropped when I saw the sender's name, Lauren Parker. I tore the envelope open, and there it was. A notice stating that I, Evelyn Parker, 68 years old, was being sued by my own family for financial abuse of an elderly relative. I had to read it 3 times to believe it. According to the complaint, my sudden stopping of financial support caused them emotional distress, economic instability, and psychological harm. They even requested a capacity evaluation, claiming I showed signs of mental instability and impulsive behavior. I, a woman who financially sustained them for years, was now being accused of not being mentally competent. I sat down. Every word in that letter pierced me like needles, and then, the only emotion left wasn't anger. It was clarity. They didn't just want money. They wanted complete control over my life. Because if they declared me incompetent, they could apply for guardianship, which meant they would control everything: my house, my accounts, my retirement, even my late husband's insurance. They wanted it all. I placed the letter down, wiped my tears, and immediately called attorney Amanda Cole, who once helped a friend of mine with an estate case. When I read the complaint to Amanda, she was silent for a few seconds before saying, "Evelyn, this isn't a family dispute. This is intentional manipulation, and you need to fight back. It'll help you." And then she said a sentence I will never forget. "They think you're weak. They're wrong." I looked out the window, the city of Dallas gleaming under the afternoon sun, and I knew the real battle had just begun. A few days later, Amanda called me into her downtown office. A tall glass tower, cold but elegant. When I walked in, Amanda was standing by the window holding a thick binder. "Evelyn," she said, "I reviewed all your financial transactions with Michael's family, and to be frank, this is one of the worst cases of familial financial exploitation I've ever seen." My chest tightened. Even though I had mentally prepared myself, hearing it from a lawyer felt like a knife cutting straight through the truth. Amanda laid documents across the table. "We're countersuing. Not just civilly, but criminally." I blinked. "Criminally?" Amanda nodded. "Lauren and Michael took money from you for years without proper legal consent. Then, when you stopped, they turned around and accused you of incompetence to try to seize control of your assets. That is coercion, elder exploitation, and it is prosecutable." I went silent. Never in my life had I imagined the words criminal charges attached to my family. I was just a grandmother, a mother, a woman who believed familial love was unconditional. But sometimes life tears away every illusion in the cruelest way possible. Amanda continued, "We will request an immediate freeze on all their assets. That way, they can't hide money, sell the house, or destroy documents." I took a deep breath. "Isn't that too harsh?" Amanda looked straight into my eyes. "No, Evelyn. Harsh is what they did to you. Standing up for yourself is not cruelty." For the first time, I believed she was right. That evening, when I got home, I found a long message from Ethan. "Grandma, Mom and Dad said you're destroying our family. I don't know what's happening. Can you tell me the truth?" I sat on the sofa, staring at his words. Ethan was still just a child 18, caught in the chaos of adults, unsure which way was up. I replied, "Ethan, I will always love you. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you. When you're ready, we'll talk. I'm not hiding anything from you." After sending it, I put my phone down and looked at the dark ceiling above me. I didn't know what the future held for me and my grandson. But I knew this. I would not teach him the toxic idea that harming others was normal. 2 days later, news of the countersuit reached Michael and Lauren faster than I expected. While I was gardening, their car screeched to a stop in front of my house. The doors slammed. Michael stormed toward me, face red with fury. "Mom, why did you do that? You froze my accounts. I can't pay my employees. I could lose my business." Lauren stood behind him, lips tight, eyes sharp as knives. "Evelyn, you can't drag us down like this. You're ruining Michael's career." I set my pruning shears on the workbench. "I'm not dragging anyone down. I'm simply not letting you drag me down anymore." Michael rubbed his temples, as if the world was collapsing on him. "Mom, we're struggling, really struggling. I needed that money to keep things running." I looked at my son, the man I had raised with so much love. "Then why didn't you come to me honestly? Why did you sue me? Why accuse me of losing my mind?" Silence. Lauren looked away. Michael froze. I continued, my voice calm like a still lake before a storm. You chose to attack me. I am only defending myself. That's all. Michael stepped closer, his voice softer now. Mom, I'm sorry. I looked straight at my son, really looking, searching for even a trace of sincerity. But what I saw was only fear. Fear of losing money. Fear of losing the house. Fear of losing everything that depended on his mother's bank account. Not fear of losing me. I took a step back. Get out of my house. If we have anything else to say, well, say it through the lawyers. Lauren pulled Michael back toward the car, throwing over her shoulder. You'll regret this, Evelyn. You'll see. The car door slammed shut, leaving me alone in the quiet front yard. I stood there, listening to the soft bird song of a Texas morning, and I knew things would get worse before they got better. But at least, this time, I was standing my ground. That afternoon, my lawyer Amanda called. Evelyn, the DA's office has reviewed the file. They've decided to open a criminal investigation against Michael and Lauren. I tightened my grip on the phone. A criminal investigation? Amanda spoke slowly, firmly. Yes, and they just uncovered something bigger. These two didn't just exploit your finances. It looks like they may have done the same thing to other elderly relatives in your family. I went silent. It felt like the ground inside me shifted, and in that moment, I realized this was only the first step into the darkest part of the whole story. 3 days after meeting Ethan, attorney Amanda called and told me to come to her office immediately. When I arrived, the conference room door was already open. Amanda was standing with a sharp-looking middle-aged woman wearing a badge that read, District Attorney's Office. I'm Detective Maria Santos, Elder Abuse Investigation Unit. She introduced herself. We need to talk with you, Evelyn. I sat down, feeling my chest tighten, as if something were squeezing it from the inside. Maria opened a file, one page after another, and laid them out in front of me. Did you know that Lauren once had someone named Aunt Margaret sign a power of attorney form? I shook my head. She thought it was just a consent form allowing Lauren to handle her bills, but in reality it was a full power of attorney. A year later, Lauren sold her house under the pretext that it was unsafe for her to live alone, and transferred all her assets into accounts under Lauren's control. I covered my mouth. Oh my God, Maria continued. We've also found that Lauren did something very similar to her ex-husband's grandfather, and it appears Michael may have been involved at certain stages. The room suddenly felt colder. I could feel a chill crawl across my skin. Amanda placed a hand on my shoulder. Evelyn, I know this is hard to hear, but you need to understand. This is no longer a family disagreement. This is a criminal pattern. Maria nodded. Our task force has gathered enough evidence to request a full search of Michael and Lauren's assets. We'll need your cooperation as a key witness. I nodded, before I even realized my hands were trembling. That afternoon, while I was outside working around the house, my phone rang. It was Ryan, Michael's younger brother. He hadn't called me in years. Evelyn, are you okay? I'm fine. What's going on? Ryan sighed, his voice heavy. Evelyn, I should have told you this a long time ago. Lauren has always manipulated Michael. Hes not a bad guy, just weak. And Lauren, she's smart, calculating, and she knows exactly who to exploit. I stood there in the driveway, the late afternoon sunlight on my face, hearing every word like ice being dropped into my bones. I know Michael's in the wrong, Ryan went on. But Evelyn is terrified of Lauren. She threatens him with everything she can divorce, taking Ethan away, ruining him. I closed my eyes. There were so many things I wanted to believe. But the truth doesn't depend on who's afraid of whom. Wrong is wrong. Ryan, I said, if he was that afraid of Lauren, he still could have come to me. But he chose to stand with her. He chose to sue me. He chose to stay silent when I was cast out of my own family. Silence on the other end. Then Ryan spoke quietly. "You're not wrong for protecting yourself. I just want you to know Michael may have signed things, but Lauren is the one steering all of this." I didn't answer. I no longer had the strength to comfort anyone. That evening, just as I was about to have dinner, I heard a car brake hard in front of my house. Headlights flashed through the window. I stepped onto the porch, my heart sinking. Michael, my son. His face was as pale as paper. "Mom," he said, walking up the steps, his voice shaking. "You have to help me, please." I folded my arms. "Help you with what?" Michael held out his phone. On the screen was an email from the DA's office. Criminal summons notice. "Mom, they said I might be arrested," he whispered. I didn't know what Lauren was doing with Aunt Margaret. I just signed the papers because she told me to. I never meant to hurt anyone. I looked at him, a grown man, standing in front of me like a little boy who'd just had his candy stolen. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I want you to withdraw the countersuit. If you drop it, the DA will ease up on the investigation. I know they'll listen to you." I shook my head. "You're wrong. No one listens to me this time. This is a criminal investigation. It's not between you and me anymore. But if you tell them you don't want to press charges, it's not just charges anymore, Michael. These are crimes. And I can't stop the law from doing its job." Michael grabbed his head with both hands and sank down on the steps. "I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to lose Ethan." I sat down beside him. For the first time in months, my heart ached in a different way. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Michael, you still have a chance to make this right. But you have to be honest. You have to stand on the side of the truth, not on Lauren's side." He looked up at me, his eyes wet, full of desperation. "If I do that, Lauren's life is over. Not because of you," I said softly. "Because of what she did." Michael stayed silent for a long time. Then he said something that brought tears to my eyes. "Mom, if I tell them everything, Ethan will hate me." I looked at him and almost whispered, "Son, Ethan will hate you more if you keep quiet." Finally, Michael nodded, a small nod, shaky but real. He stood up, took a step back, like a man about to step off a cliff. "I'll do the right thing," he said. "For you, for Ethan, for myself." I watched him walk back to the car, the red taillights glowing and then disappearing at the end of the street. I stood alone on the porch, but for the first time, I didn't feel alone in this battle anymore. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share how you feel if you'd like. And I want to know, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay, so you don't miss real family revenge stories where every tear carries a lesson in trust, betrayal, and awakening. There are harsh moments in life when you realize you're no longer just a victim, you've become a witness. And when the truth begins to surface, it doesn't just free you, it saves others you never knew were hurting just like you. That's exactly what happened in the following week. After that tearful conversation with Michael, I knew he had finally buckled under the weight of reality, but I never expected him to do something this brave. The next morning, Amanda called me, her voice tinged with surprise. "Evelyn, you're going to want to hear this. Michael Parker has contacted the DA and offered full cooperation with the investigation." I sank into my chair. "My son really did that?" Amanda's voice was firm. "Not just that. He handed over a hard drive Lauren had hidden in her office." My heart started racing. What kind of hard drive? Victims' financial records, emails between Lauren and a shady associate in Arizona, wire transfer evidence, fraudulent power of attorney documents. Evelyn, this is the kind of thing even a cautious criminal would never want found. I had to hold onto the table to keep from collapsing. Amanda went on. I've reviewed some of it and immediately sent it to the DA. This is no longer just a Dallas case. It may expand into a federal investigation. The FBI could get involved. I was stunned. Lauren had done this to more people than I ever imagined. And now, the truth was bursting into the light like sun into a room long sealed. A few days later, I was invited to a closed-door meeting at the DA's office with others people who had suffered just like I had. When I walked into the conference room, time seemed to stop. There were 3 elderly people waiting. An old woman with silver hair, a cane resting against her chair. An old man with sloping shoulders, clearly someone who had once been strong but had been worn down by the years. A middle-aged woman with red-rimmed eyes, as if she had just finished crying. They looked at me and I looked at them. No one said a word. But we understood each other instantly. The same wound, the same danger, the same long, suffocating silence. Detective Maria began. Thank you all for coming. We've reviewed the hard drive provided by Michael Parker. The data reveals a pattern of financial exploitation spanning at least 12 years across 3 states. I felt my breath catch. Maria continued. Lauren Wright, her name before she changed, it used the same method with many victims. She built trust, offered to help manage finances, then took full control, and Michael was involved at several points along the way. The silver-haired woman sighed, her voice trembling. I knew it. I knew she was taking my money, but I had no proof. The middle-aged woman burst into tears. My mother died bitter, thinking she was losing her mind. But the truth is, Lauren had drained her accounts. I laid my hand gently over hers. I used to think I was just stupid. But no, we just trusted the wrong person. Maria turned to me. Evelyn, your testimony and Michael's evidence are key. The 2 of you have unlocked an entire network of victims. I lowered my head. I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted my peace back. But sometimes, you have to fight so that others won't have to go through what you did. A week later, the news exploded. Multi-state elder abuse investigation. Spouse scheme uncovered. Dallas woman accused of defrauding 12 elderly victims. Case may be referred to federal authorities. Lauren's name was everywhere in the press. Her image in handcuffs outside her home was splashed across the morning news. Michael's face was nowhere to be seen. He was cooperating with the DA, protected as a witness. And me? I sat alone in my living room, watching the TV, feeling like I was watching someone else's story. But it was mine. My life, my trust, my family. My phone didn't stop ringing. Friends, neighbors, old acquaintances. Everyone was shocked. Everyone asked the same question. Evelyn, how did you endure this for so many years? I only answered with one sentence. I endured it because I thought I was helping. But when help turns into exploitation, that's when you have to stand up. That evening, Ethan showed up at my door unannounced. He stood there like a little boy who had lost his way. Grandma, I know everything now. I saw the news. His voice cracked. I pulled him into a hug. We stood there for a long time without saying a word. Then Ethan looked up, eyes wet. Dad is trying to fix things. But Mom, she won't admit she did anything wrong. I smoothed his hair. You don't have to carry the weight of the adults. You just need to stand on the side of the truth. I'm standing here, aren't I? Ethan said, right next to you. And for the first time in months, my house felt warm again. The next day, I received an invitation to speak at a community forum on elder financial abuse at the City Community Center. I stood on stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, mostly elderly, some younger people there with their parents. I held the microphone and took a deep breath. "I used to think staying silent would preserve my family," I said. "But silence only protects those who exploit us. If you've ever gone through what I've gone through, please know this. You are not alone." The whole room was completely still. "I'm not just standing up for myself. I'm standing up for all of us." The applause rolled over me like waves. In that moment, I knew. My life had turned a page. Not a chapter of suffering, but a chapter of healing. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share your feelings if you wish. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Voices of Auntie so you don't miss real family revenge stories where every tear carries a lesson about trust, betrayal, and awakening. Have you ever sat in a courtroom and seen the person who used to call you mom let in with their hands shackled? Not in a movie, but in real life, where the air smells of old wood, the lights are cold and white, and the silence feels as heavy as stone. I have, and my heart was breaking and freeing itself at the same time. On the morning of the first hearing, I arrived very early. Dallas was gloomy, the sky thick with clouds like it was warning of a storm. I wore my favorite dark-colored blazer, buttoned it all the way up, as if that extra layer could somehow protect me. Amanda walked beside me, her eyes sharp but full of compassion. In front of the courthouse was a line of news vans. They knew this was a big case, a multi-state elder financial exploitation ring that had gone on for years. They knew the name Lauren Wright, and they knew me, Evelyn Parker, as a key witness. When the courtroom doors opened, I saw Michael being led in from the back. He was no longer the man who had shown up at my door begging me to save him. Now he was a cooperating witness, under special protection. He wore a white shirt, no handcuffs, but his shoulders sagged, and he looked years older. And Lauren, she was escorted through the side door reserved for defendants. Her wrists gleamed with metal cuffs. The bright orange jumpsuit swallowed up the confident, polished woman I used to see standing on her rooftop patio, raising a glass of wine with her friends. She looked at me. That look, half hatred, half pleading, sent a chill down my spine. The hearing began. The DA laid out the charges one by one. Elder financial abuse, fraudulent power of attorney, illegal transfer of assets, psychological exploitation of vulnerable adults, a systematic pattern spanning more than 12 years. Each charge landed like a stone dropped into a deep well, echoing heavy in the closed courtroom. I looked down at my own hands. They were trembling slightly, not from fear, from pain, from the fact that I had never imagined I would live to see this day. Then, one by one, the victims took the stand. Each of them told their story, piece by piece, like my heart was being torn open again and again. An elderly woman with a soft voice told how Lauren had tricked her into signing papers to sell her house. An old man, his voice shaking, described how his life savings vanished from his retirement account. A middle-aged daughter broke down, sobbing as she said her mother died ashamed, thinking she was losing her mind, not remembering where her money had gone when in fact Lauren had drained it all. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and stood up. "I once trusted Lauren like a daughter," I said, my voice unsteady but clear. "I paid the mortgage for my son and her for 3 years. I thought I was helping my family. But one day, they cut me out of my own family and tried to take legal control of my assets. When I stopped supporting them financially, they claimed I was mentally incompetent." I looked straight at Lauren. "Today, I finally understand I was never her mother-in-law. I was just a source of money." The courtroom went dead quiet. I continued, "But the worst part isn't what they did to me. The worst part is realizing they had done the same thing to other elderly people long before me. If I hadn't stood up, more people might have become their next victims." I felt tears fall down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect those who can't protect themselves." When I sat down, the courtroom was silent for a moment. Then the judge's gavel broke the stillness. During the recess, I saw Michael in the hallway. He stood a few meters away, not daring to come too close. "Mom," his voice cracked, barely above a whisper. I looked at him, not with anger, not with hatred, just a deep, endless sorrow. "You did the right thing by telling the truth," I said quietly. "That will save a lot of people." Michael bowed his head, his eyes red. "I'm sorry for everything." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need my forgiveness to become a better man. You just need to keep doing the right thing." He nodded, like a child being taught how to stand upright again. When the hearing resumed, Lauren's lawyer tried everything to defend her. They said she was a victim too. They said Michael pressured her. They said she was under psychological stress. But the evidence from the hard drive and from Michael himself was too clear. Lauren shot Michael a burning look, then turned her gaze on me, as if I were the one who had ruined her life. But I knew the truth. She was the one who dug this pit. She simply didn't expect to fall into it herself. By the end of the day, the judge made several key rulings. Lauren would be transferred to federal custody pending full trial. The known number of victims was still rising, as more people came forward after seeing the news, and the DA indicated they could seek a sentence of over 40 years. I walked out of the courthouse into the golden Dallas afternoon. The sky was still, but I could finally breathe easier, because the truth was no longer buried. When I opened my car door, Ethan came running. "Grandma!" He hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I want to be someone who fights for justice, just like you." I laughed through my tears. Sometimes, pain doesn't destroy you. It turns you into a streetlight for someone else. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share how you feel if you'd like. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Voices of Auntie, so you don't miss real family revenge stories where every tear carries a lesson in trust, betrayal, and awakening. Have you ever woken up one morning and realized an entire city is talking about your life? Not in the way you once dreamed of, but in a way that turns your pain into a warning bell for hundreds, thousands of others. I have, and it is both terrifying and strangely beautiful. 2 days after the hearing, the first headline appeared on the front page of the Dallas Morning News. "Dallas Grandmother Takes Down Multi-State Elder Fraud Scheme." My photo standing between the downtown buildings was printed right beneath the title. I wasn't ready for that. But the universe doesn't ask for permission. Soon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Not from people I knew, from complete strangers. A woman's voice, trembling. "Mrs. Parker, I saw the news. I think my own daughter is taking my money the way they did to you, but I'm scared to speak up." An elderly man, his words thick and slow. "I don't know where to start. It's my grandson. He makes me transfer money to him every month." I thought it was my duty, but now I feel like I'm just an ATM, a middle-aged caller. My mother died broke. I never understood why her retirement account was empty. Now I'm starting to think, "Evelyn, can you help me?" I sat there, my hands shaking, listening to each story like echoes of my own past. I realized one person's silence can destroy a generation, but one person's voice can sometimes save many. After that wave of calls, the community center invited me back, not just as a speaker, but to lead a new group, the Dignity Circle. On the first meeting day, I thought maybe a handful of people would show up. But when I arrived, I had to stop at the door. The room meant for 30 was packed with over 70 people. Some sitting, some standing against the wall, some leaning on walkers, some pushed in wheelchairs by their children or grandchildren. I walked into that crowded room, full of faces and fragile hope. Their eyes weren't asking me for money or rescue. They were asking for strength. An elderly man in a flat cap spoke first. "Evelyn, I'm here because I don't want my kids to see my house as their inheritance while I'm still alive. I'm still here, and I want to be respected." Applause broke out. We were moving. Then, people started telling their stories. Some were pressured into signing away their savings. Some were tricked into giving power of attorney and lost their pensions. Some had money managed right out of their accounts in the name of help. But what surprised me most was not the pain. It was the strength. They were here to fight. They were done being quiet. They were done enduring. When it was my turn to speak, I held the microphone, looked around the room, and said, "I used to think I was alone, but looking at all of you today, I know we are not alone anymore." An elderly woman wiped her tears and nodded over and over. From that day on, Dignity Circle became a real movement. 2 weeks later, Amanda called. By then, the movement had spread to other cities: Houston, Austin, Oklahoma City, Tulsa. "Evelyn," she said, "do you realize you're creating a model the DA's offices in multiple states want to learn from? They want to partner. They want to expand elder education programs based on this." I laughed through tears. "You're talking like I'm some kind of expert." Amanda replied, "You're not an expert. You're real, a real victim, and a real survivor. That's more powerful than any degree." I fell silent. In 70 years of living, I had never once imagined I could become a voice for anyone, let alone for hundreds of people. While the movement was growing, Michael was changing too in ways I never expected. One afternoon, he came to my house, not to ask for money, not to beg for help, just to talk. "Mom," he said, "the DA says my sentence could be reduced if I keep cooperating." "I want to make things right," I nodded. "Good. But what do you want to do after that?" Michael placed a folder on the table. "I want to start a nonprofit to help seniors recognize financial abuse. I want to use my own mistakes so others don't repeat them." I opened the folder. It was carefully put together: financial plans, educational programs, partnerships with lawyers, community centers, a hotline proposal. I looked at my son, and for the first time since all this began, I saw a man trying to carry responsibility, not run from it. "What will you call it?" I asked. Michael smiled faintly. "The Dignity Protection Foundation." I hugged him. Not as a reward, not to erase what had happened, but because I saw him trying to become a better man. That weekend, as I was getting ready for bed, Ethan called me on video chat. He was practically glowing. "Grandma, I got into UT Austin's public interest law program. I want to be an elder rights attorney. I want to be a voice like you." I covered my mouth as tears spilled out. I never imagined my painful story would become the path toward something beautiful in my grandson's future. Ethan grinned, "And I want you to come speak at my first-year orientation." I laughed with him, my heart warm like a soft yellow lamp in the dark. I had never seen the future this clearly. When I turned off the light, lay down, and looked out the window, a quiet realization settled over me. Sometimes, losing a family is how you find a community. Sometimes, being betrayed is the beginning of awakening. And sometimes, standing up for yourself doesn't just save you. It saves the people who aren't yet strong enough to stand up on their own. If this story touched your heart, remember you are not alone. Share how you feel, if you'd like. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay so you don't miss true family revenge and awakening stories where every tear carries a lesson in trust, betrayal, and rebirth. Have you ever watched someone who once hurt you stand before a judge, and instead of remorse, you see them clinging to the last scraps of control with desperate lies? I have. And in that moment I understood. Some people never repent unless they're forced to stand face to face with the truth. The final sentencing hearing for Lauren took place on an autumn morning, when the leaves in Dallas were turning gold along the streets near the courthouse. I arrived with Amanda, Michael, and Ethan. The three men in my life, a son who had made terrible mistakes, a grandson who was still growing into himself, and a fierce lawyer walked beside me like a living shield. But even so, when we stepped into the courtroom, the sight inside still made me blink. Lauren stood between two federal officers, hands cuffed, swallowed up in an orange jumpsuit. But what chilled me wasn't the prison uniform. It was her expression. No fear, no shame, only pure hatred. Her eyes swept across the room and stopped on me. And right then, I understood. In her mind, I was not a victim. I was the one who had ruined her life. In reality, the truth was the complete opposite. When the judge called the case, the DA stepped forward to deliver the final argument. 17 verified victims, over $600,000 stolen, funds wired across multiple states, forged legal documents, coerced signatures on powers of attorney, calculated attempts to seize assets as soon as victims became frail and vulnerable. But what made the entire courtroom hold its breath was Michael's testimony. He took the stand not as a defendant this time, but as a man who had chosen the truth. He looked at Lauren, eyes red, but he didn't look away. Lauren was the planner, he said. I went along because I was weak. I told myself we were just helping relatives, but in reality, we were exploiting them. I was wrong, and am ready to take responsibility. Lauren shot up and screamed, "Michael, you owe me. Without me, what would you even be?" The bailiff had to hold her back. The judge banged the gavel, calling for order. I looked at Michael, and for the first time through all of this, I saw him standing upright on his own 2 feet. When it was my turn, my legs trembled a little. Amanda gave my hand a light squeeze, and I rose. "I once loved Lauren as if she were family," I said, my voice echoing through the courtroom. "But love does not mean letting someone erase your dignity. I fed that household with my heart and my sacrifices. And when I could no longer keep paying, they tried to take everything from me." I turned to Lauren. She stared back, jaw clenched, eyes burning. "I am not here to lessen my pain," I continued. "I'm here to end the pain of people like me." I saw Ethan wiping his tears in the gallery. Michael was staring at the floor, jaw tight. Amanda exhaled, the faintest smile of relief on her face. It was the first time I had told my full story in a courtroom, and the first time I felt truly free. When the judge pronounced the sentence, the entire room seemed to stop breathing. Given the number of victims, the level of harm, and the duration of the offenses, the judge said, "This court sentences the defendant, Lauren Wright, to 55 years in federal prison without parole." Lauren collapsed. No begging, no apology. Just stone. Some people only understand they were wrong when the prison door shuts behind them. After the hearing, we walked out of the courthouse. The first person to hug me wasn't Michael, it was an elderly woman I had met in one of the Dignity Circle groups. "Evelyn," she said, gripping my hands, "thank you." I almost laughed through the ache. I had never imagined that a grandmother once thrown out of a family group chat would become someone other people drew strength from. Then something unexpected happened. A reporter approached, holding a microphone toward me. "Mrs. Parker," a sister of one of the victims, said, "you've opened the city's eyes. What do you think when people call you a symbol of the elder protection movement?" I froze for a second. I had never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted my dignity back. But then I looked at Michael finally standing straight, no longer shaking, looked at Ethan's eyes shining with new conviction, and I knew my story wasn't just mine anymore. I smiled and said, "I'm not a symbol. I'm just an older woman who's had enough." And when older people have had enough, we stand up. The reporter was quiet for a moment, then nodded. That evening, when I came home, the sun was already down and the autumn air was cool. I stepped into my familiar living room, but this time, it felt bigger, brighter, warmer. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window. Golden leaves drifted down outside. For the first time, everything felt like it was allowed to rest. My phone rang. It was Ethan. "Grandma," he said, excitement in his voice, "my department wants to invite you to speak at orientation for the new law students this year." I burst out laughing. Who would have thought from being kicked out of a family group chat to this? Ethan continued, "You didn't just save me, Grandma. You saved a whole generation." I answered softly, "No, sweetheart. I just told the truth. The truth has its own power." Right before we hung up, he added a sentence that brought tears to my eyes. "Grandma, you're the reason I want to become a lawyer." I set the phone down and watched the city lights flicker on, and I knew, finally, that this painful journey had turned into something good. I was not a winner. I was something more important. I was no longer silent. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share your feelings if you'd like. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie Tay so you don't miss true family revenge and awakening stories where every tear carries a lesson about trust, betrayal, and healing. Have you ever heard someone who once deeply hurt you say, "I want to start over," and for the first time, you believed they truly meant it? I once thought I would never trust Michael again. But life has a way of placing us into brutally honest moments we never saw coming. After Lauren's trial, my life changed faster than I could keep up with. I was invited to speak at conferences. Dignity circles were blooming like flowers after rain. Older people from everywhere were writing letters, sharing their stories and thanking me. And amid all that, Michael, my son, was trying to turn his failures into real action. One morning, he called me, "Mom, I want you to come see my new office." New office? I thought he was still under supervision, still working with the DA's team, but I agreed. Michael drove me to a small shared office building in North Dallas. On the glass door was a fresh sign, "Dignity Protection Foundation, protecting seniors, restoring trust." I ran my fingers gently along the letters, not because I doubted him, but because I could hardly believe what I was seeing. Michael looked at me, eyes earnest. "Mom, I want to do something right this time, really right, not for money, not for appearances, but because I owe you, and I owe a lot of other people." I stepped inside. It was just a small suite, enough for a few desks. But on the walls, Michael had pinned up large posters, 10 red flags of financial exploitation, how to spot a fake power of attorney, list of elder support hotlines, and one big poster, "Dignity is not a gift. It's a right." I turned to my son. He was no longer a man waiting to be rescued in the middle of the night, no longer a man living off my bank account, no longer Lauren's shadow. He was a man learning to stand. A week later, Michael had his first community workshop at a senior center in Richardson. I went with him. Standing in front of more than 50 seniors, Michael began, "I'm not standing here as an expert. I'm standing here as someone who did wrong. I let myself be led. I hurt my mother. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. And I want to warn you. Sometimes the person exploiting you is not a stranger, it's someone sitting at your own family table." The room went completely silent. Many people nodded. One elderly woman wiped her eyes. I watched him and felt what every mother truly hopes for. Not perfection, but growth. When the session ended, an older man came up, took Michael's hand, and said, "Thank you. Your story reminded me of my daughter. I think it's time I talked to her." Michael smiled and thanked him, but his eyes were searching mine, as if to ask, "Mom, did I do okay?" I just nodded, and I knew he understood how proud I was. While Michael was laying the foundation for his nonprofit, Ethan brought me something I never saw coming. One cold winter evening, Ethan asked me to meet at the same cafe where we'd shared so many hard conversations. "Grandma," he said, "my senior capstone project is building a website to help seniors scan contracts and power of attorney documents. If the system spots anything suspicious, it will send them a warning and guide them to legal help." My mouth fell open. "Ethan, you're only 19. He laughed, eyes shining. "But you're 19-year-old. And I want to protect older people, just like you taught me." I squeezed his hand, tears stinging my eyes. Sometimes the deepest wounds grow the most beautiful souls. Time passed, and Dignity Circle grew far beyond anything I had imagined. From a handful of people, it spread across 5 states. Community centers kept calling, asking me to come speak. But that wasn't the biggest surprise. One morning, I received an email from the National Council on Aging, the largest national organization devoted to older adults' rights. They wanted to honor me at their annual conference in Washington, D.C. I sat frozen in front of the screen. Not because I felt I deserved it, but because I couldn't believe that everything which started with a cruel family group chat had now led me all the way to the nation's capital. When Michael heard, he hugged me tightly. "Mom, I'm so proud of you." Ethan texted, "Grandma, you have to take tons of pictures for me and write an epic speech." Amanda emailed, "Evelyn, this recognition is long overdue." All I could do was smile. And for the first time in many years, my heart felt completely at peace. The conference in Washington gathered hundreds, experts, lawyers, doctors, policymakers. When they called me up to the stage, they introduced me as Evelyn Parker, the voice of dignity. I stood in the lights, surrounded by applause, and felt like my heart was being healed in front of everyone. I took the microphone and said, "I'm not special. I'm just an older woman who stayed silent for too long." One day, I realized silence doesn't protect anyone. And when I finally stood up, I saw that thousands of others had been waiting for someone to go first. The room went still. We are not weak. We just need to be heard. When I stepped off the stage, many people came to hug me. Warm arms, soft thank yous whispered in my ear. In that moment, I knew my journey wasn't over. But it no longer began in pain. It began in hope. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share what you feel, if you'd like. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie, so you don't miss true stories of family revenge and awakening, where every tear carries a lesson in trust, betrayal, and rebirth. Do you believe that a single letter, a thin envelope left at your doorstep, can soften your heart as if the past itself had come knocking again? I didn't. Not until the very morning I thought my life had finally, truly become peaceful. 2 weeks after receiving the Voice of Dignity Award in Washington, D.C., I returned to Dallas with a heart full of hope. I kept supporting the groups, worked with Michael to grow the Dignity Defense Foundation, and helped Ethan start building his tech project to protect older people. Everything was flowing smoothly, like a garden just beginning to bloom again after a storm. And then, that morning came. I opened my front door and found a white envelope on the welcome mat. No sender, no return address, just my name written in neat, familiar handwriting. Lauren's handwriting. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside was not an apology, not an explanation, just a single short sentence. "Evelyn, I know you think you've won, but this game is far from over." No signature, no context, just one line, sharp and cold as a knife. I stood frozen in the entryway. Even the air felt colder. It was like the past had slithered back in, trying to wrap itself around my throat one more time. I called Amanda immediately. "Amanda, Lauren sent me a letter. She still knows what's happening outside. She's taunting me." Amanda told me to send her a photo. Less than 10 minutes later, she called back. "Evelyn, I've already reported it to the federal investigators. Lauren is not allowed to contact you. This could get her sentence extended." I hung up and pinned the letter to the corkboard in my office. Just when I thought everything was over, it started again in a different form. Later that day, Michael came by the house. I showed him the letter. He sat down on the sofa, his face going pale. "Mom, I know Lauren. I know how she thinks. She will never truly accept defeat. Even in prison, she'll look for ways to feel like she's still in control." I tried to keep my voice steady. "But you said the DA would protect the witnesses. They are, and they're doing their job. But she didn't write this to physically threaten you in some obvious way." Michael paused. "She wrote it to scare you, to make you feel like you're only strong when she isn't watching you." I looked at my son, exhaled slowly. "Michael, what do you think she can still do?" He shook his head. "Mom, you're not her victim anymore. You're leading a movement now. That's what's driving her crazy." I fell quiet, and I understood. Some people will never change. Some souls only feel powerful when they're making other people feel small. But I wasn't the same woman I was a year ago. The next day, a federal investigator called to confirm, "Mrs. Parker, we've added Lauren's letter to her violation record. You don't need to worry." "Well, handle it." I thanked them and hung up. But the unease had already taken root. Not because I was afraid of Lauren, but because I was afraid of all the vulnerable people like me, people someone like her could still exploit. And that fear pushed me toward a big decision. I would launch a free statewide course on preventing financial scams against older adults in Texas. I called Michael. "Son, I want to start an online program so people in Dallas, Houston, Austin, everywhere can learn how to protect their assets." Michael was thrilled. "I'll handle the logistics. I'll get pro bono lawyers, financial experts, and someone from the DA's office to join." Ethan texted in the new little family group chat we'd created. "Grandma, I'll build the website. Leave the tech to me." I burst out laughing. The same dark days that once shattered everything were now becoming the fuel for something powerful. The first class was held at the Richardson Community Center. 20 people registered, then 32, then 58. Eventually, the list passed 100. I stood on the small stage, facing rows of gray hair and bright eyes full of trust. My hands didn't shake like they used to. "We're going to learn how to read contracts," I said. "How to recognize power of attorney forms. How to say no when family members try to pressure us into giving up our assets, and most importantly, how to protect ourselves." The whole room nodded together. I looked at them and saw my past self, but I also saw a stronger version of me in their future. That evening, as I was about to leave, a young woman came up to me. She was in her early 30s, eyes red like she'd just been crying. "Mrs. Parker, you have no idea. You just saved my mother." I was surprised. "Saved your mother? How?" She showed me her phone, a text her mother had sent. "Sweetheart, I watched Evelyn Parker's class today. I realized I've been staying quiet even though your brother is pressuring me to sign papers. Tomorrow I'm going to say no. Thank you for worrying about me." Tears streamed down the young woman's face. "You did what I couldn't. You made my mom believe in her own voice." I hugged her as her shoulders shook. "It wasn't me," I whispered. "It was your mother. She chose to stand up." Driving home that night, the Dallas sky glowed with city lights. I watched the traffic flow and felt a quiet peace spreading through me. I had lost so much in that long battle, my sense of safety, my trust, my family as I once knew it, but I had also found things far more precious: strength, community, and a new purpose for the rest of my life. I pulled up in front of my house and unlocked the door. A gentle breeze drifted in, carrying the warm, woody scent of home. And I realized, at last, I had truly come home, not just to a house, but to myself. If this story has touched your heart, please remember you are not alone. Share how you feel, if you'd like. And tell me, where are you listening from? Comment your city or country. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Voices of Auntie so you don't miss true stories of family revenge and awakening, where every tear carries a lesson in trust, betrayal, and rebirth.